Welcome everyone again to the Learning to Birth series, where we interview some of the world's most interesting and inspiring thought leaders on birth and pregnancy. And today we have with us Michelle Leclaire O'Neill. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you. Lovely to be here finally after all the mishigas we went through.
Very exciting to have Michelle here. It did take a little bit of coordinating to get Michelle on, but it's worth it because Michelle is the author of 5 books on hypnobirthing and family. Michelle is also the creator of the word hypnobirthing and the hypnobirthing method, and also the director of the Mind Body Center there where she is in California. So it's great to have you here, Michelle.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
You are so welcome to be here. Now, would you like to tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got to create the hypnobirthing method and do what you're doing now?
Sure. Well, it starts a long time ago because I was born during World War II. And so all the women were feminists at that time. They had to do many things and when they gave birth, they all supported each other. There were no men around. So when they came home, the women still remained the feminists that they were. And I was raised in a Catholic household, in a Catholic neighborhood in New York, in an apartment building where everybody, the richest person had the most children. That's the way they looked at it. And so my mother was quite wealthy. She had 9. I'm the oldest of 9. And to me, when I think back on it, and I think of Ina May and the farm, this was like the predecessor to the farm. They didn't realize it, but the women all helped each other. They supported each other. There was no question that they were not going to have a natural birth. They all had natural births. And they didn't discuss anything that was going to be a problem because they all got together and they talked amongst each other, amongst themselves. And the funny thing was, I think when, if anybody was overdue, there were no cars, so they had a taxi. They hired a taxi. We didn't need a car. And they would hire a cab, and the cab would take them up what they called up and down the birthing hill. And I guess it was the birthing hill because there were some bumps, or maybe it was just the culture of birth, and they'd ride up and down the woman to go into labor. And so it was a tradition. So as I went along in my life, well, I'll tell you what happened first before the preface to the hypnobirthing. So I worked in psychoneuroimmunology at the Simonton Cancer Center. But before that, I worked on the first PTSD ward in the United States for Vietnam veterans, all the veterans. But it was Vietnam veterans at the time when they used the word PTSD. And I learned an awful lot from working there. And then I met Dr. Carl Simonton, who was in the field of, he was a radiation oncologist, and he started the field of psychoneuroimmunology and cancer. And his belief was that he thought there was something strange because many people got well, some didn't, many had beautiful deaths, and many didn't, and he wanted to know what the difference was. So he realized that it was their attitude, their thinking, their beliefs. So he started a treatment center where people would come for 1 week with a significant other from all over the world. And they happened to have it in this beautiful native Indian healing ground, and which facilitated the healing also, I think. So all the patients, they would have their chemo or their radiation, do whatever they needed to do, but then they would come to this. And we started on a Sunday night, and by Thursday, we discussed death and dying. So it wasn't right away that we discussed that. And there was no fear around it when we talked about it. And I realized there was more fear around birthing my own 3 children, I had natural births because I was young. I don't think it had anything, I didn't take any classes or anything, but I was in my 20s. So then I thought about the dealing with the death and dying. And I thought, this is very fascinating that people are talking about death and feeling about it and thinking about it in a very different way from the women I knew who were talking about birthing. So after working with Carl, with Dr. Simonton for almost 10 years, I said to him, Carl, you know, how would you feel if I use this work in a childbirth program? He said, I think it's a great idea. Be my guest. And he wrote something on the back of the book, the first book, Creative Childbirth, about him and about the program. So actually, that's how it started. So hypnobirthing is kind of, hypnosis is kind of the icing on the cake. We maximize all the work with hypnosis. But that's why all the people who kind of copied us and used the word hypnobirthing, it was my fault because I didn't call it psycho-hypnobirthing like Lamaze called it. Psychoprophylaxis, which is what I should have done. So Lamaze, as you know, well, first there was Grantley Dick Reed. I'll get into my method in a second. But Grantley Dick Reed talked about fear in childbirth, of course, yes. But he didn't have a way to really address it. He didn't have a program. So then came Lamaze. And Lamaze went to Russia, and they were doing beautifully. The mothers in Russia were doing, about 92% of them gave birth naturally when they used hypnosis, but they also used some mind-body work, which they didn't call it that then, but that's what they were doing. And so he felt, Lamaze wrote a book, and most people haven't even read his book. They just, I don't even know what they do, but or where they get their information, but it's not from Lamaze's book, because if they did read it, they'd realize that he wanted a program to deal with the fears and to change the verbiage around childbirth, because words have a connotation, just like when we say now contraction, immediately people think of pain. So he wanted us to change all the language of birthing, as Simonton changed the language of cancer and death. So it was a great background for birthing. So then I started the program, and well, actually I didn't do anything. A woman, an OBGYN referred a patient to me, and she said, I really need for you to work with her. Now, I wasn't really working with birthing at the time, but she knew I worked with trauma. So she said, this woman was raped years ago, and she hasn't told her husband, and she's now pregnant with her husband, but this is what she has in her background. I know it's going to affect her. So she came, and we worked together, and it worked out really well. She had a wonderful birth. And then this doctor started referring more patients to me. So she said, I think you should create something that's really organized and write a program. So I did. I wrote up a program, and it's very similar to the program that we did at the Cancer Center. So it's a step-by-step approach. So we do that first before we do the hypnosis, because hypnosis, it can work, and it does work, but it doesn't really heal the inner being and the soul of the mother and her fears. So we start with, we did a 6-week class, but the 6-week class the fathers didn't like, and I didn't blame them. They didn't want to come all the time. They didn't want to show up. And I noticed that there was no bonding amongst the couples. So I decided to do a 1-day class just to see how it worked. Well, I did it in the same place where Carl did the cancer program, but he did it in a different area of this canyon, and I did it in the canyon in the part of the canyon that used to be a Native Indian birthing ground. So it was just like, oh my God, this is a complete circle. This is wonderful. So we did it up there. It was beautiful classroom, old-fashioned classroom, lots of natural lighting, and the deer would come down. But we started the day off with meditation, and then we would go through, they'd do a drawing around their body and anything that they thought might interfere with their birthing. And then they would take those fears and they would change them from an unhealthy belief to a healthy belief, to an affirmation, to a plan of action. You're nodding, yeah. So, and that was really effective. And that was actually created by a psychiatrist, an African-American psychiatrist who was the chief of medicine at the University of Kentucky, of the hospital there, and he was a professor. So, and he worked at the Simonton Center also. So, okay, again, I extrapolated it, changed it. And then after that, they would do imagery, we would do hypnosis, and they would have a visualization of the birth exactly the way they wanted it to be. And so the program really worked in one day. And what happened was the couples bonded. The fathers bonded more with the mothers. The fathers bonded more with their babies. And, you know, a lot of men play around during pregnancy. And I think one of the reasons is that they're sort of dismissed. And I think we have to invite them in and help them to connect to the feminine inside of them. Because when you do, they're amazing. They're wonderful. They're great doulas, you know. They're a little scared, so you need a doula too, but, you know, to support the father. But they're wonderful. So that's in essence how the whole program started. Anything else?
An amazing journey. That's incredible.
Yeah.
I love how you ended up in the birthing area at the end. That's very beautiful.
No, wasn't that something? And then we did, you mentioned before that you wanted me, before we got on the air, that you wanted me to talk about the teenage pregnancy program. So then we had, I had come up with this idea for the teenage pregnancy program because being that I was raised Catholic, I was always on a mission. And so my mission was to help heal the teenagers and the kids from the inner city. And so we got some funding, not very much funding, but a little bit of funding. I didn't need a lot of money to do it because I was doing it, you know, I was donating my time. And it was a gift to me to be able to donate my time. So we got enough money to do it nicely. And by nicely, I mean the kids in the program lived in LA, where I am now. There's no real good transportation. Well, they started it a little bit. There's some transportation. But the kids who live in the inner city, they live all over the place, and there's no way they could get here. So what I did was I said, oh, the money, I'm going to have a limousine, pick them up, a limo, SUV, pick them up door to door, and bring them to the conference grounds. And then we served only organic food. And we had the class one day a month. And we started with a weekend retreat that they had up there. And they were terrified because it was country. And were there bears here? No, there's only deer. There's no bears. They were really scared. But they loved it. And then we worked with them from 2008 until their babies were 7 years old. And all of them did beautifully. One of them had a C-section, a prior C-section, and had a C-section again. But they all breastfed. We paid them to breastfeed. We paid them $25 to breastfeed each month. And sometimes one of the mothers kind of pretended it was breast milk, and we knew it wasn't. But she then decided that she would continue breastfeeding, and she promised. And they all did. They all breastfed, some for 24 hours, some for 2 years. They were wonderful, and they still are wonderful. We're still in touch with all of them. And actually, the way that started was, and this is through the cancer. Am I going on too much?
No, this is very interesting. Elise Sam, who talked with us recently as well, she also used to run a program with the March of Dimes. So it's very interesting, particularly for birth workers, to know how you did this if they want to branch out and help their communities.
Oh yeah, well the program is all organized, and I'll be willing to share it, free to anybody who wants to do it, because we found out it wasn't my dream, but we did it within the budget, and it turned out to be the right thing. So, but how that's actually started was through the cancer program. One of the people with whom I work died, and his wife had a lot of money then, and she was Catholic also. I'm not Catholic now. I mean, I'm spiritual, but so she had nothing to do with her life, and she had a lot of money. And she said, "What do you think I could do?" I said, "Well, why don't you go work with Father Boyle, who works, who works in Homeboy Industries he created." So she went down there, and then she ended up working in a prison. And she met this young woman, and she called me and she said, "You have to meet her. this kid is incredible. She said, and you just have to work with her. So I said, sure. So she came out of prison. She got pregnant right away. And I worked with her all through her pregnancy. And then when I realized how well that worked, that's when I thought, well, I have to start the program. So we called it Smart Beginnings, Easy Preventions, because it is. Anybody who has a smart beginning it is an easy prevention. And the whole culture of childbirth, which is what Ida Mae Gaskin created. She created a culture of childbirth. And so you go in there, and there's a part of you that knows you're going to have a natural birth, that knows that everything is okay. You don't have all these horrible myths and these TV programs of a woman in agony and labor. It's just very different. And that's my dream, is to create a culture where people have rhythmic risings, not contractions. So.
Yes, it's very important not to call them contractions, because it's actually helping the pelvis get bigger. So I don't know why we call them contractions. It seems, in terms of neuro-linguistic programming, it seems quite contradictory to call what is expanding the pelvis contracting it. So we definitely need to change that.
Yeah.
I've got a question for you. Now, for someone who hasn't read your books or done your programs, what would you tell them is the main benefit of mindfulness during pregnancy and that mind-body connection?
Well, if they do all the work, you can change the negative language of pregnancy. You can empower yourself. You can become relaxed. You can become ready to birth your baby, whatever way you want to birth your baby. But the thing is, the program is wonderful, yes, but it's not complete. And that's why I created the My Baby, I don't know if you can see this, My Baby Bonding Band, which is every single day of the mother. It starts at week 5, day 1. Every day of the mother's pregnancy, she gets a 1.5 to 2 minute message of how she can heal herself and how to encourage the growth and the development of the baby. So we create the right environment. We change the culture one day at a time. The culture that's embedded in the woman's body, in her uterus. So we change it by talking to her, by giving her support and daily companionship. And in the background is some Baroque music, very soft Baroque music. And that also helps them because it puts her mind in a state of learning. So it's state learning. So when you learn that way, we could even just play the music later on, and then she's just relaxed and in a peaceful state and knows that she can give birth the way she wants to give birth. So during labor, we play either that music or some other music that naturally puts the brain into the alpha theta state that we want the brain into, that we've been preparing the mother for throughout her entire pregnancy. So I think it's the preparation. I think it's not very different from Lamaze. And now Lamaze itself is using our course when people want to get recertified in Lamaze, then they can get recertified through the Leclaire HypnoBirthing method.
So tell me a little bit about how the band works. Do you control it through your phone, like on a phone app, or do you press buttons on it, or how does it work?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, because the latest research out of Harvard and Yale shows that all the Wi-Fi connections can affect the development of the fetal brain. So all these pregnancy apps that mothers are listening to, not a good idea. So we went to Silicon Valley, and they couldn't figure it out because all they do is Wi-Fi. So my son's father-in-law, who's about the same age I am, I write with a pen, he could figure out how to do this without the Wi-Fi. So he created, it's a run on a battery, and I don't know if you can see this. Okay, it's run on a battery.
Mm-hmm.
And you press a button, and when you press the button, I can show you. You now have buds for your arms and legs. I visualize them forming and wish them well in their growth. One day, I'll kiss your tiny toes and feet, and you'll grasp my finger,
and I'll let you hold on for as long as you want. Today my need is, today my intuition is, today's message to my baby.
And then it goes on, but each day starts with 2 lines of poetry. So I didn't play the poetry because a lot of people don't want to hear it. But
that's beautiful. So do they just, when they want what they want, do they just click it on what they want?
Yes, they press the button, and then if they want to fast forward or reverse, then they press the other button, and all the directions are in the box, and it shows exactly how you can use it. There's the box, the gift box, and for every 10 that we sell, we're giving 1 free to an African American mother, because in the United States, African American mothers are dying at 2.5 times the rate, 2.5 to 3 times the rate of white mothers, and the babies also. So you know that, So that's why we're doing that. So that's the main gist of the program, so that we can sell these to get money for that.
That's fantastic. And I love the ethical idea of making sure it doesn't have Wi-Fi. I'm not sure how likely mothers are necessarily to give up their phones, particularly how useful, a lot of different, just Facebook groups, even the Facebook group for this website, it's probably a lot of people will be accessing it on their phones. And even I know most web browsing now, it all happens on people's phones, so, but it's certainly something they want to, they have the option with what you're doing. That's fantastic.
But you're right, that it's very, very hard to change the culture. That's why we still use the word contraction. That's why there's still pain in childbirth. That's why there are Ina May Gaskin centers all over. That's why the hospitals aren't like the farm. So, you're exactly right. And my own patients too. Oh my God. I'm going to take off my Apple phone, or my Apple Watch. I'm going to take that off and put this on. Hard. Very hard.
Would be wonderful though if there were Ina May centers everywhere, and every birthing mama or birthing parent was given one of your bands when they found out they were pregnant. That'd be fantastic.
Yes, it would be fantastic. And if the public health department, who's trying to change things, if they would, step in and do that, we could definitely change. But we need the help of the obstetricians and the public health department and the hospitals. Yeah.
Or just a really progressive philanthropist, an entrepreneur, perhaps.
Yes. Yes.
That's also the way to go.
Who knows? Because he said I could use his name. He came to one of our classes, Rupert Murdoch, the one who started Fox. Yeah. Well, he came to the class, and who knows? Maybe we should contact him.
Maybe he should.
Because he was wonderful in class. He was very generous and lovely, and he helped a couple in the class that needed some help afterwards, and he allowed them to contact him. So he's very open. I listen to left-wing radio. I don't listen to Fox News, but nevertheless, he's a lovely man. And he was very kind in the class, and he has a social conscience and a heart and money. So maybe
he may know someone who knows someone. You never know. So he might know someone wanting to help. So that's fantastic. I love the band, and I'd love to. Can you press it again for us? I'd just love to hear what the next thing is.
Okay.
Week 5, day 6. Music I hear with you is more than music, and bread I break with you is more than bread. Conrad Aiken. You have 2 folds of tissue that will grow to be your sweet ears. May you hear the sounds of love, equality, peace, serenity, and joy. The magical convolutions of your ears are taking place inside of me. I am in awe. Today, my resistance is. Today, my aspirations are. Today's message to my baby.
Beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Did you write it all yourself and do all the decision
and
trees?
I did all the research on the poetry, and then I went to a sound studio. So it is in you know, generic for all mothers in English. Then the next one is in it's culturally specific for Black mothers, and I had one of the kids in our program record some of it. She and I recorded it together, and then the next one is in Spanish. So it's all in one band. So so you can press a different button to get a different. Yeah, but it's the same thing. But I mean, it's a little different. The poetry in Spanish is different, and the culturally specific nutritional needs may be different, and thoughts and feelings may be different for the African American community. But basically, it's the same. And yes, I wrote the whole thing, and I was like, it was a high writing it. I was, yeah. It was. I did it after it came to me after a meditation, and so I do TM meditation, and yeah, it was a gift. I mean, I was, you know, when people say channeling, oh my God, I'm from New York. You know, I'm not Californian. Woo woo. I've become kind of like that. I was channeled. I did. Well, I don't know who came. St. Anthony, somebody. Anyway, it was channeled.
For those who don't know, TM has a long history of, it's called transcendental meditation. Look it up. It's one of many forms.
Yeah. Yeah.
Many forms.
Mm-hmm.
Well, having dipped my little toe in entrepreneurship and the entrepreneur's world a little bit over the last decade and a half, it's no easy thing to envisage the full product and create, not just create just the concept, but the whole product and take it to market. There's a whole lot of steps involved. We spoke to Amy Hedera on here actually a little while ago about the whole process of how birthing a startup is a bit like birthing a baby. So it's an amazing thing that you've done. It's not easy, and you've obviously put in a lot of work to create. I mean, you've created a tech product. That's what you've done. It's a piece of technically it's femtech even, so you could even really be talking around the world at all the femtech stages and femtech conferences about it, because it's femtech. So
that's a good idea. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Well, there were so many people that helped, you know, my son's father-in-law, and then some people on the board of Smart Beginnings, and one of them with whom I swim, and she was there all the time to help me, and my partner helped me, and my kids were supportive, but you know, they didn't really help, but one of my daughters did. And then of course the funding for the Smart Beginnings, that's how we were able to do it. And then the sound studio, and the guy that was supposed to help me today, he's sick though. So we did everything there, and it's right nearby. So it was a team, and we had a wonderful time doing it. And it started in March of 2017, and we just launched it. It's up on Amazon, but it's not quite finished. We're doing a film for it on Amazon, but it can be bought on Amazon now. Yeah. And any reviews we would love, and any purchases of, and anybody who wants to donate one to the poor mothers. No, I'm sorry, it isn't poor mothers, because this is across all socioeconomic groups and educational groups that the embedded racism is in the Black community. So it's not about poverty, nothing. That, you know.
Is it something that retailers, like B2B kind of people, can contact you and stock it in their stores, like their baby stores or their maternity stores?
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah, yeah. It sells for $100 on Amazon, free shipping, and then we're doing a 10% discount now. But stores, of course, would get it for, you know, half price. Yeah.
That is so cheap, really, when you think of the investment you would put into anything during your pregnancy. That's incredibly cheap. Do you, how many hours really of recording is on it if you just laid it out back to back?
Well, it's a 10-hour battery, and it will last throughout the whole pregnancy if you played it every day. And you can even go back and forth. You can play it again, 3 times in one day if you need to. So I don't know, 2 minutes, 2 minutes a day.
Oh,
most.
Sorry, my question was the total recording time on it, not the battery time or the playing time, but like how many minutes of you speaking, like of all the what you wrote when you recorded in the studio?
I'm speaking for 2 minutes every day, so we have to multiply that by the days. We start at week 5, day 1. That's a good question. I should know the answer to that. I don't.
Do you go up to week 40 or 41 or 42, or what week do you
40.
go to?
We go to week 40, and then we send them.
Maybe it should be like an extra. Maybe there should be like an extra download. Like if you're going to 41 or 42 weeks, you can download the and for an extra $10, download the additional couple weeks.
That's funny. So yeah, I mean, it works. Mothers have used it and they really like it. But to change the culture is a big deal.
Does it have an option like when you're like something that you can play when you're in labor that's on it?
No, because during labor we don't have talking. We only recommend music, and so we have either the Baroque music CD that we have, the Healing the Chakra CD, or Gregorian chant, because Gregorian chant actually changes the brainwaves. And so the more intense the rhythmic risings, the lower you turn the music. And my youngest daughter birthed her first baby, yes, but then I missed the first birth because she was 2 weeks early. But the second one I was there for. She lives back east. And she was in a practice that had doctors and midwives, and thank God the midwife was on when she was ready to birth. And she birthed 10 pounds, 2 ounce tests with 10 pound, 2 ounce tests with HypnoBirthing and with Gregorian chant. And that was it. She did a great job, yeah. So it really is effective. It's very effective. And the hospital, and of course, she had a midwife who sat there and knitted. So that started the culture of we're going to have a good birth, yeah.
And that's what Michelle O'Dent says. Of course, that's what the best midwives do, is just knit. That's what they're all meant to do.
She literally did. She really did. I loved it. When she walked in with her knitting needles, I said, oh my God, this is going to be beautiful. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. And so these CDs on healing your chakras for pregnancy and the Gregorian chants, these sound fantastic. Where do people find them?
Oh, okay. Well, a mother can just buy this whole thing. It's the Leclaire HypnoBirthing bundle for happy hypno moms and blissful hypno babies. Yeah. And it has the book, it has the handout sheets, the worksheets, and all the CDs in it. So they can get that. And then we have a certification course also. So they can get this from our site. You can just go to leclairemethod.com. It's on Amazon too, I think. But,
so it comes with the book. So if you want the CDs to play during birth, you have to buy the book. Yes, that's
no. You can also go to CD Baby and just put in my name, and everything comes up. And then pretty soon we're going to be redoing it on Amazon, and then we'll have the MP3s on also for sale with the bundle, so they can listen to the CDs or not. And then this is the other book. This doesn't come with it. That's HypnoBirthing, the original method. So
and I've seen that you've got some things on Spotify as well. Do you? What's on your Spotify? No, you can't. Oh,
somebody's selling Spotify now.
I thought it came up with you, but that's okay. Maybe that's a Spotify playlist in the making of Gregorian Chants for Childbirth by Michelle Leclaire O'Neill. Sorry.
And then then we have this one, the hypnofertility book, which is the hardest thing to work with, harder than cancer or birth. That's another whole story, but yeah. So they can get, everything is in here, but that's a good question. Yeah, they can just get it on MP3. But I do recommend their reading the book because it's work. You know, the work begins with the bonding band, with the program, and then we maximize it with hypnosis. So it's not just, yeah.
And I think that's the thing as well, like what might be misunderstood about, you know, using hypnosis during pregnancy or hypnobirthing is just that it's a very low commitment, but it's actually quite a large commitment. If it's basically about reprogramming your entire story about yourself and your body and your potential and what's possible and who you are and who your baby is. So it's about reprogramming the whole mind body. It's not just about taking a short course or listening to some words. That's not going to create the effect or the outcome that, you know, would be the amazing outcome that you'd be dreaming about. So definitely it's a dedication over and above just, you know, attending a course or listening to some, you know, short CDs. You've got to really do the work to reimagine yourself, which would be your whole program, like what you've created.
Yeah, you're right. You get it. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I think you're creating a culture of birth by doing all of these webinars. This is amazing. This is a wonderful, not beginning, but it's a middle. Yeah, it's great.
It's beautiful because all the work that people like you have done over decades, it can be a little bit hidden in this modern world. I come from the world of digital transformation, and there's so much content out there now being created. It's very hard to discern who the real kind of thought leaders are and things unless you have the eyes to see it, because the thought leaders nowadays are just, you know, it's happened fairly quickly. They're all just being swamped by the noise out there of people who have the money to create digital machines and, you know, snappy videos and flashy social media pages, and people like yourself who have decades worth of original groundbreaking contribution, you know, like the creation of the word hypnobirthing, that's needing to be on the surface again and not drowned out. So this is why the work here at Learning to Birth has been so important and so much fun as well, as I've gotten to learn from people like you and discover new things and have a really good time talking about what I love. So thank you for making the time for it.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Michelle, how do people follow you online or come to your website to learn more?
Well, the website is LeClaireMethod.com. That's LeClaire method.com, or mybabybondingband.com. I just went up on Instagram. I'm not too techie, but I have a guy that's helping me with Instagram. So I guess it's not a big deal for most people, but for me, it's just a learning, you know, I just have to learn how to do it. And I'm glad to do it.
You'll love being on Instagram. It's where most of the birth, stuff happens nowadays. All the birth, like all the, it's all, I'm sure everyone who's listening here knows, but it's where like you can flick on any day and you'll see, you know, videos of full on babies being born, no censorship, and, you know, videos of it. It's all happening on Instagram. So yeah, it's fantastic. Well, thank you for joining us.
Yes, well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And you and I can chat soon, or if you want anything, just, you know, email me and let me know, and I can send you the whole program if you'd like it.
That'd be fantastic. Before we head off, Michelle, I guess, do you want to just tell the audience what your vision would be if, you know, every birthing parent had access to, you you know, your program or the My Baby bonding band? Like,
I have to go because the woman room. So I'm in a room upstairs from.
all right. No worries. All right. Thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank
And
you.
we'll see
My vision would
you
be
later.
that they all can have, that they all use the program and they have whatever kind of birth they want to have and they recover beautifully. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay, take care. Bye.